we've got Noah and Anzhelika for how to scale user testing with AI without losing the human touch. And I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gunjan. Thank you everyone for coming. My name's Noah. This is Anzhelika. We're from RACV and we're UX designers, product designers. We do a bit of both depending on if it's squad work or sprint work. And what we wanted to share with you today is our new process of using AI in user testing at RACV. So yeah, we started off with this: what if your research assistant never slept? This is like we don't really want AI to work while we're sleeping, but that was the hook.
Yeah.
AI can't replace a researcher, but it can help with some of the more tedious parts of user research. So we'll talk through today about how he did this and how he kept that human judgment and intervention throughout. So the way we do user research at RACV traditionally has 2 or 3 designers and then a couple of note takers who tend to be the other designers on the team. We have a team of about 15, so each research project that we do, and we do about 4 or 5 a year, each of us, there's quite a lot of team members involved. So some of the issues that we were having, which we wanted to try and fix with AI, were manual note-taking, then the inconsistent note-taking styles that people had while they were note-taking. So some people write verbatims, some people write kind of observations or a mix in between, or kind of truncate quotes as well, which isn't good for synth after. And yeah, in general, we're also under pressure to just do more with less time. We have a bunch of design sprints that we're on, which we're not usually on all the time, but we have usual squad work as well. So synthesis can take a while, and how we document that is inconsistent. So part of this is building a new structure for user research and then passing that to the rest of the team so they can also use the same format. And then finally, sometimes research objectives can get lost during synth. So maybe you had some ideas going into it or project goals and you kind of lose that strategy as you go throughout.
Cool. I have it right here. Amazing. Thank you. So glad to see you here. So our goal was to understand how can we scale research process to speed it up and use less resources, because it's really hard to take off like 4 people of their day-to-day projects and just put them to focus on research for 5 or more days. So we kind of divided the responsibilities between AI and researchers. So AI was responsible for structure, speed, and just like filtering through all these notes, all the transcripts. And from our perspective, we were bringing judgment and human touch and understanding. Because, for example, AI cannot see or read nonverbal cues, which sometimes when a person says, oh yeah, that's clear, but you see on their face, no, they're really confused. They just don't want you to know that they are. So my next one is about what actually happened when AI stepped in. So we reduced time across all 3 stages of research. It was so helpful for prototyping, when for one of our concepts, we wanted to have like personalization. So it meant for each participant out of 16, we wanted to have personalized prototype. And it's just like insane. How can 2 people who are running research do this? So we just went to AI. I was like, okay, now we're going to have a session with this person, update details based on the data that we uploaded. It also maintained the quality or even made it a little bit better in terms of like the quality of notes. I'm honestly not the best note taker to have on the team. I'm really slow typer. Okay, and it also enabled parallel testing sessions. What that means is that team of 2 can have 6 to 8 sessions a day. Like this is like insane for us. We could do what, 4, 5 sessions a day with team of 4. And it also removed the need for manual note taking because we could just use a transcript and upload it to AI. And it's faster and more structured documentation. Also because we use the approach of hypotheses. So it involved some work from our side for AI to understand the structure and to work with it. But yeah, it like just made the synthesis and documentation a breeze. And this is what, of course, our leadership team wanted to see, the numbers. So we saved at least 5 days using AI. It also sped up the delivery timeline. So handover from design to dev was like 28% faster. It meant that devs could analyze the designs and start working on like initial solution much faster. The team of 2 matched the output of team of 4, at least team of 4. And we also saved around $9,000 per research study, meaning that we can repurpose this money and have another research, because like the budget is not like, it's restricted. You can't be like, oh, actually, we already used it all, but we want to test something else. You will not get more. So this will help us to save the money and then repurpose it for the future use. And now Noah will tell you how we did it.
So here's our research toolkit. We have a couple of tools at RACV that we are allowed to use. We're a big corporate, privacy is really important. So cyber is also really important. So we have a closed Copilot system. Through that, there's also a ChatGPT engine that we can use in the Copilot. We also used Askable to live transcribe. So we're using the transcription that it uses, not the video, just the text. And then finally, we use Rovo AI. So that's just part of Confluence. It's an inbuilt tool that they have. And that was mainly for formatting of tables and the documentation part. All right. So the first step of prototyping and setting up the research, we used Confluence for our template. So we made sure that it was pre-filled with all the hypotheses. So going into testing, we make sure that we have hypothesis statements that tie in with the strategy and the goals of the project itself, and make sure that's also elevated towards brand strategy. So we have all these hypotheses with true-false statements afterwards, and through testing, we'll validate that later. But we basically filled out these tables ready for testing. And we made sure that the template was really aligned with the research script. What that meant is in the script, we had to have kind of markers because we were using the transcriptions. AI has to be able to hear that as well. So we would say things like, now we're starting task 1, task 2. So really clearly just from our side so that later it'll be easier to synth. So we also used AI to refine the screener and task wording questions before sessions, and also made sure that everything was set up well. So we were running 2 research sessions at once, so we couldn't be in each other's sessions all the time. So we had to make sure that we knew what we were doing and we were kind of sharing back the whole time. Next up, during the user testing session, so we ran 15, 16 over 3 days without note takers. And this was a bit of a test and learn for us. This is the first time that we've done it at RACV without note takers. So it felt a little bit scary doing it. So we added the verbal task markers. And what this helped do is free up time to personalize each prototype. So we were testing with RACV members. So we knew they had a product. And it gave us time to look them up on Salesforce and actually find things like their car model, their rego number, their home address. So PII data that we could then put into the prototypes. In this case, we were testing the home screen of an app. So we could get that really good first reaction when they open up the prototype. They go, oh, like, how does it know this? And that's actually what we were testing as part of it. We wanted to test where does that creepiness factor come in for personalization. So to what degree should we personalize the app? And so that's how we were able to answer some of the hypotheses we had. AI also helped a lot to give quick summaries of each participant right after the session. So we could immediately go to the transcript, put it through a prompt, and just send like a quick paragraph or dot points to the other researcher and just be like, okay, well, this is what's happening, this is what I'm seeing. And so even if you're not in that session, you start to build up a picture over the testing, over the couple of 3 days of what's happening and kind of what patterns are emerging. So we had the kind of rolling synth going on at the same time. So we also structured our times that we had time between user testing sessions. 20 to 30 minutes was spent to review Confluence documentation. So I mentioned there's true false statements. Right after the session, I would go through and say, okay, that was true, that was false, that one needed, that needs further testing, or it's not applicable. And you can then run that through AI and say, okay, find the quotes from that session that back up that hypothesis. And also try and challenge the answers that I gave to those hypotheses. So maybe 1 out of 10 times, AI would say, okay, well, I don't think you were right with this hypothesis, and here's why, and that you would get it to document the quotes of why it thinks you were wrong. Sometimes it wasn't really on the mark because it used a component from another page or something and it's confused it. But what it does help us as researchers is to kind of challenge ourselves and also just use our judgment more instead of just using AI. We then used Rovo to reformat all the data that we had in the hypothesis tables into a really big table so that we could also check overall what was happening throughout testing. So we kind of, even as the first day was finished, we started to see a pattern visually of like what hypothesis statements were true or false. And it also let us kind of shift focus as well in testing. So maybe we needed to ask more probing questions in certain parts because we weren't sure about things from day one. We also were able to, after all the testing, start putting together insights, and then with AI collect quotes that backed up those insights. We also tried using AI to craft those insights, but we didn't find it as useful because it doesn't really have the context of the strategy of the project or the strategy of the company. So we found that part still needs to be the human part, but getting the quotes to back up those insights was really useful because I could just get 10 quotes or so and just pick the top 2 that were most representative of it.
Alrighty, so now we're going to talk about what worked and what didn't. So the benefits are parallel testing, of course, 16 sessions in 3 days. I don't know, we couldn't dream about that. Early validation. So because we were using the tagging system, and after each session, we would pre-fill all the tags, we also had like an overarching page where we will bring all the tags from all the participants we tested with. So but by midpoint, we already could see what's actually holding up well, oh, okay, we actually thought that's gonna influence users or they would like this, but the data says no. So we could adjust as we went. I guess with the previous approach, we wouldn't really know that. First of all, because you're in less than half of the sessions. Second, it's just too many sticky notes on mirror boards that you focus on one task. And with this approach, you can look throughout the research study and look through all the tasks that you worked, kind of plan to test, and see what is happening there. Faster and sharper synthesis because we were able to stay focused on the objectives thanks to the hypothesis statements. Like per study, we had like 30, I believe. And it really helped us to pay attention to what matters the most. And then also set aside some things like the ideas that users proposed that we will be exploring in the future. It also captured precise scores with timestamps. Again, in the past, for the presentation, for example, I would need to sit and look through all the recordings, or like 5 memorable ones, to find those quotes. Now I can just like, hey, can you find this for me? And efficient, fewer people, and stronger momentum. In terms of what didn't really go that well, it missed some key hypotheses during the synthesis. So like out of 30, maybe like 10 would have empty insights, and I'll be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I believe we definitely talked about it. Outputs lacked consistency. So some insights would be like really detailed, while other ones would say, oh yeah, participant agreed with this and this and that. I'm like, you just rewrote the hypothesis. I need you to tell me the insight. Then formatting chaos, yep. Sometimes AI would break, and yeah, I broke roll on the first day, and it started to give me responses in like a code version, which I could not understand, unfortunately, and I couldn't like fix it, so I went to Copilot. And nonverbal feedback had to be captured manually by researchers, because AI relies only on transcripts. Alrighty, so we're also going to talk about ethics and oversight over AI. And number one, as you already can tell, AI supported our decisions, but it did not replace human judgment. Sometimes it would put, for example, quotes to an insight to kind of back it up. But then when you read through it, you understand that that quote is not for this particular task. They told it in a wrap up. So some things, it just, yeah, it comes up with stuff. So you have to apply your own judgment and understand, are you like, do you really agree with that? Or is it some more probing that you need to do? Every output was manually reviewed for accuracy. That's what I mean by that. And also notable insights were written down by researchers manually after each session. So yeah, after I wrap up a session, I would go and do the tagging, but I also would go and was like, oh, that was really interesting. I would put like 6 insights myself. And the most interesting part is when I would run AI through the same table, it will not write down my insights. It will just put the generalized ones. It's like, I could have missed this information if I wouldn't rely on my judgment and understand that, oh, that's something I would need in the future. Of course, as for any study, our participant data was anonymized, and we was like, just refer to them as speaker B, because the AI just analyzed transcripts, so you don't need to say the name. Also, we needed to use tools that are approved by the company. That meant we can't use ChatGPT, which I love. And yeah, prompt engineering was like a major thing to get the output that you want. And it took us some time. Like for me, definitely took like a day and a half to figure out my prompts and just take them and write in the notes so I don't ever lose them. Sometimes I would like trick the system and give this my prompt to ChatGPT and like, can you make this better? And when I reuse that one, it would give me even better results. So yeah, that's our approach. And yes, it's not perfect, but it definitely changed the way we run research. And I'm like really passionate about it right now. Like synthesis, it was the day I was dreading. Seriously, one of the researchers that I ran, it took me 4 days. 4 days for 3 tasks that were rather large, and now my brain was just dying by the end of it. Now I'm like, oh my god, I can already see if something validated no, and now I can run AI and pull me all the quotes and analyze all the insights, and then I can analyze it and understand like, okay, that's what we need to do. This is our design direction for this particular feature. Yep, that's us. Thank you very much.
Let's have some prompts and a bit of a template of how we did the hypothesis statement. So feel free to have a look. I've just filled out the hypothesis table with some mock data and stuff, but basically we would use that and then have a section for each task on that. Were there any questions for us? Yep.
Sorry.
Okay. I won't have to yell this way. Hi, is that better? Great.
Yep.
You spoke about the things that didn't go so well. I'm curious about how you, like whether you thought about how you'll respond to them and how you'll evolve the practice for next time.
So we started to pick up on that literally on the first day. So that's why we started, for example, for the quotes, we started to require timestamps. So I can go and rewatch. I was like, okay, it was a misattributed, quote. Or like you could already see the insights. And then I'll be like, okay, I want you to give me more detail on this insight. Because right now you just rewrote my hypothesis statement. Or sometimes when I would not agree with AI, I was like, can you explain to me why you think it's true? So it was more about like refining your prompts and also adding prompts for AI to kind of explain its judgment, like why it actually says what it says. Yeah, and keeping an eye on the output in terms of the ones that relates to the participant data, like quotes.
Hey, just a question around sort of cybersecurity. What was your process with cyber? How long did that take? Were there any major roadblocks through the process with them? Well, number plates I can see being a problem, but yeah, what was the process with them, and what hoops did you jump through to make them feel like it was okay?
Yeah, our cyber team is pretty approachable. Copilot had already been cleared, Askable as well, for use in research. The use of PII data is something that we have access through Salesforce. It's like an email to cyber and they get back to us in a couple of days. The main thing for us is deleting information afterwards. So any PI data that we aren't, because we're not allowed to use it in the research, we have to delete immediately after. So names, anything like that, yeah. Yep.
Question. I have a hard question, actually. At any point, did you or anyone on your team ever feel tempted to offload the hard work to the AI just a little bit, just to like not struggle with a question for as long as you might have had to if you didn't have it?
I don't think so. Like I can only talk from my experience, and I want to deliver quality data. So sometimes, yeah, I had 30 minutes in between my sessions, but then I will fill in the most like memorable things, and I will come back to it, and I would work after I wrapped up sessions at 4. I would go and refine it. I just can't trust it. I can't trust it to do my work because I know that I already know that it misses information and its judgment is not really, sometimes it's a little bit delusional. So yeah, and I want to deliver the best outcome I can. Plus it also, I would say it's a bad image for our team because we are trying to establish the value of the UX team in the company, and we're in a really good place right now. So I want to support that rather than just like, oh yeah, it can do it for me.
But on that as well, it's very much a test and learn. So we were trying things and then also doing it after manually as well to see how it would work out and comparing the results.
Hi. Anzhelika, you said earlier that you were a little frustrated that you couldn't use ChatGPT due to work constrictions, and Noah, this question might apply to you too. What do you think you guys are missing out on by not using ChatGPT and having to use a different AI tool instead?
Maybe that's just like my personal view, but I feel like the responses that ChatGPT gives to me are kind of smarter than the one that Copilot gives. But again, at the time when we were running research, ChatGPT 5 was not available in Copilot. So I would assume in our future research, I wouldn't be that tempted anymore.
Yeah, I find ChatGPT much faster than Copilot, at least our version of Copilot that we have at RACV. But yeah, we do have a plugin in Copilot where it uses ChatGPT, but it's super slow.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to give it a prompt and then go away and do something else for a couple of minutes. Blank?
Sorry, you're pulling the transcripts from Askable
Yeah.
through as well, right?
We're downloading them.
Yeah.
So we're generating a transcript after the session, and we just download it and then upload it to Copilot along with the Confluence
Yeah.
page for the particular participant.
Yep, for the structure.
Yep.
My other question is, do you, so with kind of, using AI in those sessions, does it still give you the flexibility? Because, I've like sometimes you might get some, the customer might say something and it takes you off another place. And do you still get that flexibility in those sessions that you were running?
Yeah, for sure. So the script, by the end of the 3 days, I'm not really following it. Like I kind of know how it's going to go.
Yep.
We do reserve time afterwards. Like part of that 20, 30 minutes after the session is to just document like our version of it as well. And sometimes it's because it relates to a project that's going on in the rest of the company. And those insights would be really useful for them, but they're not going to pick up based off the hypothesis statements we've given previously. So we try and document everything that is relevant. And we do ask those questions throughout the session, like and divert from just the normal script.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Sorry. What's next?
Sorry, I do have two small questions. One, you said you had to make a note of the non-verbal cues. How did you manage that when you are not taking notes? You're focusing on the interview, but then later on marry almost like the timestamps of when you notice those non-verbal cues with the transcript that either Askable generated or Copilot?
Oh, for me, it was making sure to dedicate that time right after the session to just go and do it straight away. So it's kind of still in my short-term memory at that point. I could go through and answer all the hypothesis statements. If I had left it an hour or 2 hours later, I would probably start to miss some of that.
Yeah. And secondly, the question is, as you are using AI, obviously you're giving it data. You said you delete the PI stuff from that. That's great. What about the research that it's learning, and how do it may become a problem later on that it remembers the previous projects that you worked on? And now when you're doing a new, it's not like a new chat that it forgets about everything that's been done previously. As a human, you know when to not relate the past with the present and impact the future. But has that happened? And also other people using same tool, because Copilot would know everyone's thing and how it may impact something around that, if you thought about?
Yeah, I think for us, I've seen that before, and what I do is just put it in the prompt, like only use this bit to give me insights. Also because AI it wants to generate stuff for no reason sometimes. So I think part of our prompts, it's quite specific about use the transcript, use the Confluence page, and don't make things up besides that.
We've just got less than 2 minutes, so probably the last question.
Thank you for the presentation. It's really interesting to see how it's being used sort of in a, sort of current example. Just wondering, with bias, we always talk about bias in research, and you spoke about your prompting and sort of how you refined that. And just wondering how you went about setting context or thinking about that and maybe exploring different contexts in terms of, I see in one of your things, you've said you're a senior UX researcher, but just wondering if you explored that.
Well, I think that's where the hypothesis statements helped us a lot, because those kind of became the grounding research questions that we had. We hadn't actually used hypothesis statements in that way before to kind of guide the whole research. So it meant that we could always relate back to that, and it would really be based off the true false. Sometimes we just had to make decisions, and that's where the human judgment comes in as well. Like, as Ange said, if someone said, oh, that was really easy, but we can obviously see that they struggled a bit or just were confused or didn't actually know what the task was about, you have to then take agency over that and make sure that AI isn't biasing it just based off the transcript itself.
Cool. I'll have to end it here. Thank you, Noah and Anzhelika.
Thank you.